Yo,
What's up, my good man?
how you doing?
Dude, I am so good. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I got the just so you know, I got the transcript going and the recording going, if that's okay.
Dude, absolutely. This feels like there's this thrill of going to a foreign place, but yet is a little bit familiar. And it's like there's all this sizzling, uncharted territory to
Yeah,
to to turn up.
yeah, absolutely. I was just I really enjoyed reading the Claude interaction that you
Mm,
had. You know what? It was really interesting. It was like it's like a separate medium of its on his own, like because I was reading your the dialogue, like not being able to access the files in question and having to like just read it from the conversational perspective. So it
mm.
was a really interesting experience, and I like to read things through at least twice,
Mm.
so I so that I can, and I've been doing that with any movies and books and poems or whatever I read, because I like to be able to do that second read with the end in mind, like thinking about where
Mm.
things end up and like every word and sentence kind of relating to how things um, end up. But yeah, thanks for sharing the Claude interactions. Like I got a lot to. I guess I guess I don't know how to start, but I guess like, what are your goals for us chatting and kind of reconnecting after a long period of time, and just like what do you want to get out of it, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so this form is really nice, conversation with a like mind. I'll say one thing. I think that with Claude, when you look at the conversation and you'll see that big like text block, I think you can click on it and you can download it.
Oh, okay. Well,
So, but I
huh.
like your reading of it. Like I like that there was like missing context and you kind of had to assume what was there or like proceed without knowing what it was exactly and try to invent it because that kind of reminds me of the two readings that you do. It's like the first reading is you want to get a sense of the whole thing of what's there, and then once you know the territory, then you can go for a second look and your mind switches to a different thing. It's like exploring a piece of land, right? It's like the first
Yep,
time you go out and like survey it, see
yep,
what's there, then you have a mental model of it. Then when you go out again, it's like you can enjoy things. For example, if you find a snake, like the first time you're afraid when you see it, but the second time you might be able to take pleasure in the viewing of the snake and kind of see it more, see the childlikeness of the snake rather than it's a dangerous thing because you know that it's in its little area, it's going to be okay.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'm doing this thing where with whatever I'm consuming, I'm really into graph databases right now. And
Graph databases.
yeah, are you familiar with that at all?
A graph database. Well,
Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit, but
yeah, go for it.
there was this technology called Neo4j. That's it's
Neo
yeah,
4J.
yeah. It's been around for a while, but basically it's taking just your typical tabular data, columns and rows, and trying to make it more nodes and connecting lines. And then it has more of a visual language for querying that data. And I'm using it to really try and store like narratives and stories in like a database
Mm,
like format. So and to connect that to what you were saying about um, the snake and kind of going through two different readings, like in order to have like a database like schema, or in order to be able to put it into that technology, I kind of have to know where things like end up. And once I've gone through that first reading, then I can create a narrative graph of the story, like and really it all kind of centers around crises,
Mm.
decisions that are made. So like while I was reading your the quad dialogue, I thought it was very interesting how I could almost see the concerns of the quad moderators and making sure that you were okay, like challenging, you know, challenging the way that you addressed the situation in one line and then moved on with
Mm.
the rest of the story that you were telling. And it was interesting because in the initial prompt, its response cut out a lot of the references that you were making in your work. And a lot of those references I felt explained um, your artistic choice
Mm.
of giving that one line and saying that it's not a big deal and kind of
Hmm.
moving on. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, it makes me think that I'm not weighed down by my own life story because there are always so many other people's, right? It's like the more you read, the more source material there is. It's like, well, okay, we can fixate on my own past and my own wounds, my own sob story, or slash and there's all these other interesting people who had it much harder than me. And it's I, I think age gives that perspective, and especially as one is a reader, and of course a writer is a reader, you just learn to see yourself as one of 8 billion people alive. You learn to see yourself as being in the 21st century, born 1986 and I'm still alive in 2026.
Hmm.
And kind of see that almost like a graph database of all the people who've ever lived.
Yeah.
I really like what you said about turning tabular data columns and rows, trying to make it more nodes. Yeah, and then you said something about how you need to know where things end up, and that reminded me of something I just actually scrolled past in one of the documents of mine I've been rereading because I think I may have said, or you may have gleaned that I have recently, like a few weeks ago, kind of completed putting out all of my writings into public Google Docs.
Man.
Um, and it's sort of like what you were saying about having a second reading. This is stuff that I wrote. So everything that's in these, I either wrote myself or copy pasted into it. And I don't think a day went by where I didn't do any of that. And so, I've got 19 documents in there and most of them are 500 pages. And so it takes me about 4 or 5 hours to scroll back through one of those. And one little thing I'm doing is just hyperlinking all the links because I
Yeah.
copy pasted it in from Word docs, and so the hyperlink wasn't there. It may just be like a little bit of like a tick. It might not be ultimately necessary if I like really think strategically about what it could be. I'm sure there's a script I could come up with in Python or something. Another snake, funny enough, to sort of go and do that myself. But it's sort of a simple forcing function to make me sort of go kind of slowly over this soil.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, kind of getting a flavor of where I was mentally then. And yeah, just seeing with new eyes all of the authors I've quoted, all of the tweets that I have read and had a reaction to. There's so many links to tweets, and so many of those tweets have been deleted and or those accounts have been deleted. So it's almost like a graveyard also in a sense. I actually started a Blue Sky account today just because there's some people who fled from Twitter and went to Blue Sky. And it's also fun to sort of like create a new body of work and create a new, you know,
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
every time you step on a new stage, you get to be someone new. And it's like, I look like a kind of happy-go-lucky white guy with nice teeth, good looking, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, I will show you the deep fucking darkness that I can do. I am fucking Hades himself. And
Yeah.
it will surprise you. It will surprise you what can come from someone who looks like me and who has my background. And, you
Yeah.
know,
I really think that, I mean, and that to me, that's the source of, I don't know, the magnetism in your writing. Like what really draws me to, you and just kind of the first interactions we had way back at the Purdue Research Foundation. Now I get the sense that like you're a man out there running like
Mm,
ahead of the pack, like your pace and your courage in just being relentless in um, putting what you put out, the size of it, um, and at least from what I can tell, the intensity of your interactions with people, the
mm,
frequency, just your scale of it, makes someone like me who needs to kind of, like I said, know the end before I can reread. It's kind of like the appeal of studying different religions and just
mm,
lines of discourse through philosophy. Like, you'll never reach the bottom of it. Just kind of like when I look
mm,
at your work and I see the 500 pages, I know I'm going to engage with them, but I
mm,
also know that I'll never fully capture it. And I think that that's very and that just reflects what's common in all of us. That experience of wanting to interact, knowing that you can't fully capture what someone else is doing. But I think we're drawn to certain things and people, at least I am, based on how big that gap is between,
mm,
there's just a, and it's not as if it's just the pace and the frequency and the courage. um in our personal interactions, you have provided relevant, useful, challenging
mm,
comments, quotations. That's like, wow, there's a vast body of work here. There is a courage and vast corpus of work, but there's also a ability to customize like
mm,
an
mm,
individual like encounter, and I think that that's very rare. So like when you were talking about when you were talking with Claude, you know, I think, just what I know of you, I think it validates your position, on
mm,
what your solid position throughout the dialogue, because I've seen it, you know what I mean? And I've
mm.
benefited from it. So, congrats on releasing that work and whatever like comes out with it, and whatever comes next between our discussions. I'm proud to know you, dude. Proud to, you know what I mean? I think just keep going, and I hope I can, uh, keep enough pace to, not lose you, from behind. But so
No, 100%, man. And yeah, I mean, I think our relationship is special because the thing we engaged in when we first met, it was either 2011 or 2012, and we were on a small team of four people, maybe five, maybe three. I think it might have been, yeah, four or five. Um, and then the just all the things that have happened since then, so much time has passed. So if we say it's 2011 and now it's 2026, 15 years, and it's like we were kindred souls and spirits then, and in the time since, the things you've written, I mean, you're like, it's whenever I read your writing, like everything you write is beautifully strange. Like you read the first sentence and it's like, wow, okay. I've never seen that sentence before. This guy has a way of associating concepts, right? It makes me picture your own internal schema and the nodes that you have of all the different words and concepts in the dictionary. And it's like I can always feel the kind of palpable search, the seeking, the yearning for either God or truth or wholeness or completion, or to use your words, getting to the bottom. And it's like I see it and it's like that's me. Like that's literally just my soul in another person's body who has his own history. And that, I think, is such an invitation to me, for me to sort of take your journey seriously, right? I do, I find myself, yeah, kind of crafting with sincere care every little syllable of thought that I put into something that I write a comment on your post or do an emoji reaction or choose an emoji. Like it's very much like a chef. Like with your fingers, very delicate sprinkles of a very certain amount of salt or pepper or something else, and like a very particular kind of swoop of the wooden spoon over, like along the contour of the pan at a certain point in the cooking of that dish. Um, yeah, and it reminds me of this, I think, quote from Carl Jung, who said, like, if you do your work in earnest, um, some unexpected friends will come to your aid. So it's almost like the thing that makes you most alien and most different. That's the kind of like tone and tenor to kind of hit. If you think about a tuning fork, it's like if you ring out exactly your frequency, that will call this one by one. People will keep coming in, and yeah, that's an opportunity to create a relationship. And yeah, you named something about me and my life and my life's work, well, that the frequency of contact with individuals has been really, really intentional, ever since, I guess, starting on, I mean, I think I call 2013 a pretty big starting point when I moved to New York to work at VaynerMedia, which is Gary Vaynerchuk's ad agency, doing a bunch of social media content for brands. That's when I kind of, I think, really caught the bug of being a writer and being an artist. And I mean, Twitter is just a wide open field of brilliant people who, you've got all kinds of really good writers and poets who are kind of tweeting out their reading lives as they go, right? So many
Wow.
little
Yeah.
snippets of poems and their own thoughts. And it's like, oh my God, like this is the place to be. I mean, this is the best university in the world when everyone is both a student and a teacher. And I mean, I had several years where I was reading and writing for 10 hours a day, and it like
Yeah.
didn't seem crazy. Though I remember when I was younger, maybe 2012 or 2010, or even like during college, I remember hearing about this guy, Joseph Campbell, who wrote that book, Man with a Thousand Faces. He wrote a lot
Oh
about the hero's journey. Yeah.
yeah.
And
Familiar. Yeah. Yeah. A little bit.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was always struck by the fact that someone said, "Oh my God, he dropped out of society and just went to a room and did nothing but read for 4 years." I was like, "Oh
Mhm.
my God, that's crazy." But now I'm like, "Well, duh." Like like of course. Like damn, like only four? How about 10? How about 15?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've always felt like the need, you know, maybe certainly in a different way to, I had the initial like English literature degree in college. I was a very voracious reader from a young age of strange things. It's interesting,
Hmm.
not necessarily. I kind of double majored in the classics, but probably didn't like attend
Hmm. Hmm.
classes enough, and so I engaged in those. But when I was a little kid, like I used to love reading encyclopedias and dictionaries and manuals, technology manuals. So I would say that my dad was a big computer guy, and my mom was an English teacher, and there was this real, and they had to some extent personalities commensurate with those
Hmm.
pursuits. So it was a big range in terms of parents who have that power over you, trying to synthesize you know left brain extreme, right brain extreme, and trying to
Hmm.
like make those two things come together, but also knowing that in their marriage they managed to do that to varying levels of success. So their being together meant that such a thing was possible, that you could potentially find a peace and a commonality between two very different um, people and approaches in ways of thinking. So, and then being the middle child as well, for whatever that's worth,
Oh,
these
wow.
things. So there's just a yeah. So I would say like my experience has been that of having to like for my emotional well-being pull together different approaches and ways of seeing things. So you know it's been what you referenced about like my writing and thought. It's been a constant for me, and I guess I've always, I guess, in terms of kindred spirits, like the frequency of the interactions that you've had, um that wasn't necessarily my approach. Like it's been pretty for me, it's been more about walking through like the major like Christian
Hmm.
traditions.
Hmm.
So starting out with a Pentecostal upbringing, non-denominational, then converting to Catholicism in college, and then more recently getting into converting to Eastern Orthodoxy, and now I'm just all those things and none of
Hmm.
those things. Um, but I guess in looking in retrospect, it could have been looked at as like an experiment, but I genuinely engaged with them, and you know found myself through the exercise, you know finally with a set of experiences that I thought um that I'm thinking could be relevant, um and maybe earning my stripes to have something to say um that's meaningful, because it's just there's these three different lines of thought that have been, carried in different ways for, millennia. So I'm hoping that these real experiences will give me some, being different, like we're all different. I'm hoping that my commitment to these traditions and the attempt to connect them all within myself will give me a pathway back from the strangeness, um, that is my perspective. So it's like I'm hoping to keep in contact with, all of humanity, through um, what I've walked through with Christianity. And, by analogy, I would guess and imagine, not knowing, that like your experience and your approach to encountering people and thought is your method of being truly original. Like you said, doing something that no one else is doing, but the
Yeah.
life lived can provide that pathway, where there's enough commonality there to get through something essential. That universality and uniqueness is to me, as really starting out. You've got a lot more experience and developed a lot more skill in your voice. I think that that's the challenge right now. That being unique, getting to something universal. And I just think you navigate those spaces really well. So I appreciate your time. I really do. So.
Hmm. Unique and universal. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that everybody, no matter how strange, has a real life they can talk about, no matter how eccentric my mind might be. When I leave the office, when I leave the screen and I go out in my body, dressed in clothes, to a place where other people are, you're more than just your mind.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice. Um, but yeah, I do think I've found something where when I'm on the internet, it's this kind of bigger brain takes over. Well, what you just said about your upbringing was super juicy, and it's really good to know. I'm fascinated by your parents' marriage. The way
Yeah.
that you said that they synthesize left brain extreme and right brain extreme. you know, that's interesting enough on its own if you're talking about just one individual, right? Just your father's work or just your mother's work. But then
Yeah.
when I think about that as a marriage, well, first, even like when it's one man and one woman, I mean, even having collaborators where it's a man and a woman are and both are extreme in that way and like tuning into their own chaos and also setting out to make order of it, but then to be in the institution of marriage and then to have children. And you got me thinking about nodes and the kind of graph database of
Yeah.
you as the middle child. So you are sort of like everywhere you look in that family system in that unit, you're a central node. You're the middle node of children to your two parents. You're almost like a spokesperson and a
Hmm.
clearinghouse of information between the elder and the younger sibling. And
Yep.
it's like, it's no wonder that your um, sense of your own career and goals and aspirations as a thinker and writer and reader and understander are like, I think that there's an interesting thing to look at the shape of your family and your role there, and then like transplant that kind of node network to you and the world. And
Yeah. Wow. That's very insightful. Yeah. I think that rings true for me. And I would, I guess, reflecting on hearing you talk about that, like certainly not in terms of like goodness, righteousness, like skill or gravity or anything, but I do think that some of the appeal of Christianity is like seeing a lot of commonalities in Jesus's position kind of between like all of these different cultures,
mm,
Rome, Jerusalem, the legacy of like as Cornell West talks about the
mhm.
legacy of Jerusalem and the legacy of Athens kind of coming together, like just this big like cultural collision and this ultimate otherness needing to like incarnate and solve big problems to like create like peace. So it's like
Wow.
I feel like I needed you know, and to some extent, it doesn't even matter if it's real or not for me. You know what I mean? So there's this very intense dialogue and discussion within Christian groups about being sure that you're saved, or like how do you know that you're one with God. Like for me, it's very much not about that. It's very much like I need it. I need it like bread, because I would say like my experience of, you know, arguably like, you know, mixed race, right? That's another like aspect of it.
Hmm.
You know, my parents were born in California, South Central LA. And then when I was 3, we moved to Lima, Ohio. And there was this big cultural collision that they never fully like engaged in for good reason. So it's almost like an immigration story, like in terms of
Hmm.
the cultural extremes, and you know, them thrusting us into that environment, um, you know, to grow and to experience life. No, I think, yeah, like I very much, I mean, to be frank, like I need it like a drug in a way, you know, and it gives
Wow.
me a certain distance from it as well, because I need it like a drug, but I don't necessarily need it for social like approval or group dynamics or anything like that. It's very personal for me, and out of a real selfish need that I can identify, that really doesn't have anything to do with kind of the theological apologetic arguments that occur. So I
Wow.
do enjoy like so yeah, so there were periods of atheism in my life. Um, you know, there could be another one,
Hmm.
but the benefits um are have been consistent throughout
Hmm.
those periods, oddly. So, and I think are you familiar with Slavoj Žižek?
Slavar
Um,
Zizek, yes.
I'm sorry, my
One,
pronunciation is not probably
no,
great.
I'm sure we both butchered it, but yes,
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, the one of our great living philosophers for sure.
I'm not an expert. I've probably consumed more
No,
of
me neither.
his videos than his primary source text, which is something I probably would benefit from doing. But he has this thing where it's like, to be a true atheist, you need to go through Christianity first. It's an interesting perspective.
That's
So,
great.
so, so yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but hopefully, yeah, so I just wanted to give you a picture of, I guess, how I see myself per usual. Like you're out ahead, probably seeing me, you know, in ways that I don't, from your description. So, you know,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So how do you see yourself? Like what do you feel, what creates this powerful drive and need to
Okay.
write, if you care to
Well,
share?
I do, and I'm going to skip over a lot. I wanted to be sure that when you said I need it like bread and like a drug, that you were talking about being sure that you're saved or one with God.
Oh, neither one.
Okay.
I would
Okay,
say
so yeah, so that discourse you don't relate to much, but you notice it. But when you
yeah,
say I need it like bread or a drug, what was that?
yeah, it's the engagement in the tradition. It's trying hard within the parameters of the various traditions of Christianity. It's trying. I'll say it more. It's actually, I guess, say it more clearly than that. It's the attempt to be like Jesus from my understanding. You know, so
Got it.
yeah,
I
so
like that. So it's it's the meaning of the attempt rather than being sure, because you sort of know that you can never be sure, and anyone who says that they're sure is bullshit because you can't know if you're sure.
Right, right. It's just this epistemological pissing contest, which I don't mean to be
Uh-huh.
disrespectful, but it's just like I'm deep enough in a philosophical tradition and understanding to know um, the limits of epistemology, what we can know, and how much up to debate, and how rich that tradition of epistemological debate is,
Mhm.
and it's growing. So it's kind of like, yeah. So the engagement to be like Jesus for my understanding, knowing that I will fail, knowing that my understanding of Jesus is my own, and there's no reason to believe that it has primacy or supremacy over anyone else's. That
Mhm.
is what I need, like bread and like a
Got it.
life-saving drug. Yeah.
Got it. All right. Well, I'll say I'm really into the Archangel Raphael, and the archangels in general, and the angelic hierarchy. And yeah, for me, I think rather than trying to be like Jesus, I think Raphael is one I relate to most. There was this video that I saw on TikTok, I think it might have been a couple years ago now. Um, God's most powerful angels. And it goes into this stuff about Raphael, God's physician, God's healer, delivering the prayers of the righteous to God. Um,
Hmm.
but he's also has incredible power and can also do battle against demons. And this kind of um, work day of you got to be ready for anything is you got to have your surgery kit and you got to have the needle and suture and all these tinctures and kind of be ready to be a doctor and save some lives. But you also got to have the boots and the helmet and the wings and the big sword and the shield and be ready to fly into battle against some pretty nasty big bad guys. Um,
It's epic. It's awesome.
yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and like I don't know, there was this TikTok account called the Real AI Bible. And essentially what it was doing is they kind of started off saying, here's what cherubim look like, or like here's how they've been portrayed in movies and in media, the little smiling cherub with a little trumpet, like the little kid, sweet little baby, doing prayer hands. But then it shows what it is, and it's like it's this big man with an eagle coming out of one shoulder, a lion coming out of the other. It's like this big, like bull head, like surrounded by eyes in the sky. And it's like, holy shit. And it
Yeah.
actually goes to the actual verses, right? I mean, it's like what was like the seraphim, for example. You've got, it's this huge like system of rotating rings that are surrounded by eyes, and they've
Hmm.
got wings on them and they're flaming, and so I definitely dug that. I was very into Satan for a while. Now, I'm not saying I was anything like a Satanist,
Hmm.
but it was funny when you talked about studying the classics or kind of classics adjacent, it reminded me of the word the arcane. So of course I've kind of found my way through, you know and this also relates to my take on hot girls, which we can spend an hour talking about girls. um
Yeah.
Witchy goth, tarot cards, crystal ball, sound healing, energy crystals, all that kind of stuff, like apothecary, kind of all
Hmm.
that world is pretty intriguing.
Yeah.
Sim like psychedelic states of mind, it's like women used to gather under the full moon, they'd all have their period together and they would have these psychic visions, and it would be like being on drugs, and maybe they did drugs, the whole like shamanic cast and like what a
Yeah.
shaman is. um
It's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, it's and like you said, you mentioned tinctures and needles
Mm-hmm.
and the need to do war and all those different things and it's there's a real like appeal there. And anyway, go on. Yeah, so you were talking. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Tinctures needle the need to do war. Well, that automatically makes me think that healing and warfare might be one, because it all depends on, I guess, your ideology or your sense of the future, right? I mean, all of like manifest destiny, right? It was all of a sudden like to the white European settlers, it was a purifying thing to
Yeah.
extinguish the buffalo and to genocide and enslave the Native Americans. They felt like they were doing a righteous, just thing,
Yeah.
um, which is interesting, right? I mean, is there an objective view of morality? And this makes it interesting to be an American. And I definitely relate to what Slavoj Žižek said about if you want to be an atheist, you got to go through Christianity. It's almost like if you want to be proud to be an American, you have to go through so much hate and disgust with what America is to get to a place where you could see a stealth bomber as a beautiful thing, or
Absolutely.
to be able to watch a clip of the U.S. Marine Corps, or the U.S. Air Force guys doing what they do, and to believe it's the right thing and it's a thing that you can get behind, that you're kind of proud to say you're an American and to love being an American. Um, I don't know, there to get through your 20s on the internet, it seems to be you just hate everything about the world. And then you come out the other side
Yeah.
nearing 40, and I don't know if you just like can tolerate a bunch of violence, right? I mean, it's been sad, not sad, maybe some cognitive dissonance to have to hear some things that maybe Barack Obama did wrong, right? I mean, I think
Sure.
we and I'm you've I'd love to hear your perspective on him being mixed race. How what that moment was for you when he got elected. If there was like, did you feel some swelling pride or some great relief or something? I'd welcome you to kind of go on a riff on that.
Sure. Yeah, I could talk a lot about that. Yeah, I think it just just like everything else in my life, it's just like I have this frame of, the agony and the ecstasy, the bizarre and the bizarre and the cathedral, right? So it's, so Barack Obama coming in, being elected president, being connected to the African American tradition. I guess a moment or a visual is Jesse Jackson crying, right?
Hmm.
At his inauguration, knowing that Jesse Jackson had real reservations with Barack Obama up to and leading to the election, because Barack Obama is Kenyan, like his father was Kenyan,
Hmm. Hmm.
which from a cultural perspective, from the quote unquote inside, that is a different culture than these two threads that are like from an intellectual African American literature perspective. Like you could describe one on the left side, you've got W.E.B. Du Bois, and on the
Hmm.
right side you've got like Booker T. Washington, right, with the African American respectability culture, assimilation, hard work, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That's Booker T. Washington. On the left you've got W.E.B. Du Bois. Definitely excellence, but also a need to carry and hold the traditions developed prior to, including slavery, Jim Crow, Jane Crow, Reconstruction, all of these different threads. Barack being Kenyan, not having his father in his life, um, to me, it didn't give me reservations. It's just kind of like, okay, what's going to happen? Because in a sense, he's being grafted in, you know, to this cultural current that produced civil rights, co-created civil rights, right? Co-created civil rights with a lot of different races, but one could argue primarily, Africans, Americans drove that process. Jazz, different things, all of the different religious Christian threads from the AME church to Pentecostalism, all these different things. I when I was going to vote for him, there was an excitement, there was an energy, it was palpable. There was the experience of the lines outside of the election polling place being just filled with folks who were excited. And I remember being in line and saying, whoa, what's going to be the collision here? What's going to be the cultural? What's going to be the surprise when Barack Obama undoubtedly will, in being true to himself, separate from the expectations of traditions that he's a part of and not a part of? And just, and if I'm going on too much, let me know. But I would say that another like an image or like a way to think about it is Barack Obama's attendance at a particular church where the reverend there was Jeremiah Wright. I don't know if you know anything about.
I don't.
Yeah. Well, he is a Methodist Black preacher, arguably one of the most skilled in the last, I don't know, half century in terms of rhetorical skills. But in Chicago, where Barack Obama was, Barack Obama, as a community organizer, wisely and shrewdly, and genuinely, I'm sure, attended that church. But during and leading up to his election, it was uncovered that Reverend Jeremiah Wright gave a sermon in which he said, "God damn America." And this led to the need for Barack Obama to distance himself from his minister and kind of separate ties. So I think you talked about some of the things that Barack Obama like did wrong, some of the things he did right. I mean, I think his achievements were, definitely like monumental, but my questions and not concerns, but just wondering how it was going to play out. Like, I think that's how it played out, with like the support of the banks, when the bubble bursts on the housing. I mean, what else was he going to do? I don't know. But I just think that there was a need for pragmatism, the need to win that second election forced many decisions upon him where you have to lean to the majority over the minority. And I think that's just everybody's experience, but particularly in the Black American experience, like that is the crisis. And other, I'm sure all other races and experience this crisis as well, but it's referenced a lot in the literature. So So yeah, yeah, that's been my experience. I definitely admire the rhetorical skill, the achievements in healthcare, um, the but I mean the drone strikes, the
Mm,
precision on banks, um, you know, the different things like that. You mentioned and I'll let I'd like to hear your thoughts on what I've said and kind of what come up for you. But my dad worked for General Dynamics, so and that's what led. And then they're a big military contractor, and that's what
mm.
led to the move from California to Ohio is the M1A1 Abrams tanks, um, and the F-16 fighter pilots. I mean, fighter jets are what he worked on.
Wow.
So, and then my mom's over here, like finding the first edition Harry Potter. Like she knew about Harry Potter before anybody knew about it. Just like this whole different like world and having to synthesize those two things together. So for sure, for me, just to kind of wrap it up, like to be to know I'm a product of America, if I can't come to love America,
Mm.
self-love is cut off for me. So
Wow.
I have to do something that I don't that I'm culturally resistant to. Again, like Christianity or anything else. The effort to come to love America is directly tied to my own personal anxieties, cognitive dissonance. So yeah, so it's just and that drives me wild. It drives me to want to like write and do these things. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've clearly got a lot of soul to dig through. I mean, I think a writer's contradictions, shames, anxieties, restlessness. I mean, that's you've got all the right stuff, man. You really do. And going down into it with words, you almost like take your attention like a drill and just start drilling down and just let words fly off from the side as if you're putting a big drill down into earth and just shooting soil out. I mean, that's sort of how I've always treated writing. And you just dig, and that's the effort of writing. And you end up with a bunch of words on a page in a certain order that sort of is a memorial representation of that digging. But I mean, I think any artist who makes it past the amateur stage will say that it's the intensity of the longing and the search and even the need to dig, the restlessness, that's what makes the work. And then the work that results ends up being this kind of strange mirror image of that sensation that you had, that intensity you experienced. And um it changes you, because the more you dig, the more you can then look at other people's work and see, damn, like that's not just a novel or an essay or a poem or a painting. That's like you have more empathy with the person who did it. And so you start to see yourself united with these other writers and artists and comedians and chefs and painters and filmmakers and all the people who do this stuff. Um, I was also going to say when you told me your dad worked for General Dynamics, I said, "Well, damn, he followed in the footsteps of Leonardo da Vinci, which is being a creative genius, but who became a military contractor to pay the bills
Yeah.
because that's where the money was, And I love thinking about the Renaissance, and you got a lot of like church and state stuff. I mean, talk about Rome and the history of Rome and the papacy and Vatican City and um you can either get commissions from the Medici or you can go work for Rome. And it's there's a lot of long history. There's a lecture I'll send you that is one of my favorites, and I'm in rereading my notes, I'm realizing just how important it is. Philosopher named Alexander Bard. He gave a speech at this men's gathering group in Germany, and he talked about the archetypes of the boy, the man, and the god, and kind of gives a history of civilization and a history of group dynamics, and talks about, fathers and sons, and fathers and mothers and sons, and how a boy needs more fathers than just his own father. He needs uncles, he needs other kinds of mentors. Um, the fact that a woman can't make a man out of a boy, uh, only men can do that, which kind of dovetails with Steve Harvey's work. I really like Steve Harvey as not just an entertainer and a kind of preacher, in his clips of, Family Feud, but
Mhm.
recently just some real serious, deep talks with
Wow.
men. Yeah, you mentioned jazz, and I wrote down jazz, and we can go kind of the Miles Davis, Herbie Hancock route and talk about music and how you can't make a mistake, and it's there's no wrong notes in jazz, and it's the next note that makes the previous one right or wrong. And jazz as a way, I like Wynton Marsalis a lot. Some things he's said, anytime a group comes together to make something new, there's bound to be conflict, and that even playing jazz in a group can teach you everything about life, right? You have to um, tolerate and accept the choices of others and not try to control too much. And there's a lot about ego in there too, right? It's like, just because I can go do a banger solo and I think, oh, I can solo better than this other guy, I'm going to go take all the time. It's like, I think the best artists are also the most generous. And um, just like writing, just like music, it's like, to be a good creator, you got to be a good audience member. You got
Yeah.
to, and it's like, you're only going to get what you give, right? I mean, I remember coming up through my 20s, writing online, and so much about getting bigger audiences, getting more followers. And it's like, man, y'all are asking the wrong questions about how do I get more followers. It's like, you have to be for others the kind of follower you want for yourself, and you
Yeah.
will literally get what you give. Because again, that magical thing happens, just like Jung said, when you do your work in earnest, people will come. Is like, when you're busy giving, not to toot my own horn, but like being the kind of commenter I am for you, when I'm busy doing that and really take sincere care and really honor that so much, while I'm busy doing that, maybe magically someone will be coming and discovering my work for the first time, or they'll be
Right.
coming to me and they'll be reading something that I did, and it'll be affecting them. And so, yeah, generosity of spirit, I think, is so much about this. That's so much about Christianity, generosity of spirit. That's so much about being Christ-like. Um,
Yeah, and I think if I whatever definition of success that I would have as being I call it a private speaker or a commenter or just I think it will be my deficits in those areas that you that you reference, because I mean, there is a real, I don't know, there's a rigidity, there's a naivete,
mm,
there is a kind of living in a bubble aspect to my life. There is, and really like some there's also a mean spiritedness, I think, like as
mm,
well, a contrarian nature that Christianity has provided a cover for in a way. So it's
mm,
like it's like almost, it's like if you're hearing me talk about Christianity in a public space or a debate forum, like these are periods of times where, just to be honest, like I'm at my angriest. Do you know what I mean?
wow.
Where I'm at. So it's like I was on this
Flipping
thing where,
tables like Christ himself.
yeah. Yeah, when I'm in the most danger, when I'm, yeah, so yeah, almost when I'm furthest from the example that I'm trying to like achieve, I feel like I'm the closest. You know, so I had this theory back in the
Mm.
day where it was like, man, is Christianity a um effective cure for like psychopathy or some type of just really antisocial violent tendency? So like if we look at, you know, this prehistoric view of Homo sapiens, and you know, if you read the works of Sapiens by you know,
Oh
Yuval
yeah, Harari.
Harari,
Sure.
there's this just violent history where clearly massive carnage occurred. Those drives and instincts are have to be present in us to a certain extent, which is why I enjoyed again reading your your dialogue as well, kind of referencing those things. It's just kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
there is kind of like in therapeutic psychological discourse, there seems to be a certain amount, a certain type of individual who's like impervious to talk therapy or psychotherapy in terms of their malevolence and just mean spiritedness, and just kind of so there's some aspects of that in me. um you know, going back to fathers, I'm really looking forward to that Alexander Bard reading because I my father was very much present, but he was the only like male figure. Like we were very like isolated in that house. So, and he's a 6'5" huge guy. So,
Hmm.
um, there really wasn't any opportunity I felt for any type of like talk back, any type of lip or questioning of like anything that he would say. So, like as the rage would build, and you know that the angst of teenage years and the need to kind of express and kind of get rid of testosterone or whatever you want to call it, the only available avenue for me was Christian apologetic discussions, um, academic excellence, and athletic excellence. Like these were the avenues for my aggression that would be acceptable in my house. So yeah, I don't, for whatever it's worth. Yeah, I mean it's interesting to talk. It's interesting to try and be like Christ, knowing that it's kind of a cover and a balm and hopefully a cure for some deep anger and mean spiritedness. And there are
Mm.
moments that, but there are real palatable moments of joy and a feeling of connection and love to everyone in the world. These are things that I've experienced, you know, some mystical experiences. But yeah,
Hmm.
you know, I just felt the need to share that, talk about it, because what you said about your experiences and your capability to kind of imagine how you would, you
Oh,
know,
right. Yeah, that
destroy
last
someone's
question
life.
Claude asked me. Yeah, when I
Yeah,
said I'm uh capable of violence. I mean even capable of malevolence.
yep,
I mean, I think, I don't know how much Jordan Peterson you've listened to or read, but
too
yeah,
much.
when you encounter someone who I don't want to say is evil. I don't know if any human being is evil or only evil. Um, but one who does nasty things and tries to hurt someone, materially, right? Um, and I had a recent experience where a friend turned into being an enemy and came after me, came after my family, made threats, was just harassing me and my family. And yeah, we hit him with legal stuff. My dad's an attorney and a very good one, and
Ah,
is just yeah. And it's like I told him many times, it's like don't do it. You don't because he will bury your ass in paperwork. He has nothing better to do than to totally crush you from all the different sides that he can.
yeah.
He's going to bury your fucking mailbox with
Oh,
letters and court dates and fees, and you're going to be hamstrung on all sides. And then you've
yeah,
got me. So he'll do that, and then you really want to leave it in my hands? You really want to challenge me and put my creative awareness to the test and to paint you as a villain? Right? Now you hear a different side of me. It's not so nice, right? I like
yeah,
being Mr. Nice Guy. I'm glad to be
yeah,
Mr. Nice Guy. I'm glad to be the cherub. But if you want me to go archangel mode and be ready to fucking bury you alive in a dungeon in the desert so God can
yeah,
throw you in the lake of fire in the final judgment for in life for an eternity of gnashing of teeth, do
yeah.
I sound like I can't do that? Do I
Right,
sound like I can't do that?
right. Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I think Jung said some interesting things about Jesus representing like the self and the different archetypes kind of all in one kind of. I guess that was my take on Jung's reading of Christianity, being that you can see the jester and the shadow and the all these different anima, all these different archetypes in different parts of it, but they're really, there's the gnashing of teeth, there's the whips and turning over of tables, there's the healing,
mhm,
there's such a, there's a sense of humor there, there's a
mhm.
weaving there, there's all these different so yeah, I think on my more charitable days, um I could say that Christianity has a good palette for all the different aspects, the extreme aspects of my character, and there are many others. But yeah, man, I wish, I hope to glean from your like, I don't know, like, because I think you're very much not those things that I referenced. Like, I mean,
Mm.
you don't seem naive. Like, you seem very well rounded. You seem like very, like you've really explored a lot of different schools of thought, and I think it can work for me, like the narrowness and the naivete, kind of like the lone wolf aspects that I have. I think it can work for me, but you know, I hope to learn from your writing and however much we talk, because I try to be self-aware about these things. I think it can build up a good energy too, right? But it's going to be a
Oh yeah.
struggle to get what I think I've had an interesting life, to get it in a way that will be effective. It's a big uphill. Um, it's a
Hmm.
big uphill climb. So
Being effective. Well, yeah, all of a sudden when well, I was going to say this. One of the funniest things about Jesus is how he was so against fame. When he would give a rousing speech or do a healing in front of a new townspeople, the next day they all
mhm.
wanted to see Jesus. Where's Jesus? We want more. Where's he
Yeah,
at? What's he going to do
yeah,
today? And his
yeah,
disciples are like, where is that fucking guy? And he's of
yeah.
course
It's
wandered off up the hill over,
yeah,
he's under a tree somewhere praying. And they're like, dude, like we finally found our voice. We found a tribe. They're going to support us. This is it. Like we found like this is a chance for belonging right here. This is success is right there. They love us. They're going to, you know, pay for tickets every day. It's like, we're going to be safe. We made it. And he's like, we're going to the next town. And
yeah,
they're all like, God damn it. This fucking guy. He
yeah,
can't
man.
he can't just let himself have nice things, can he? He must love to suffer. He must love to work. He must love being alien. He must
Yeah,
love coming in and being ultimate otherness, which is what you said you are earlier in this call. You said you were talking about, yeah, this ultimate otherness. That's what you said. That you said, oh yeah, Jesus between Rome, Jerusalem, and the legacy of Athens. this ultimate otherness needing to incarnate and solve big problems to create peace. And
Yeah,
yeah, to
just like,
some,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
oh yeah, and and then you said to some extent it doesn't really matter if it's quote unquote real to you, because in a sense we're all, this goes back to Big Bang, what is consciousness, life is but a dream, but it's also like we're all the same self, right? We're all sort of hallucinating, right? Which is what's fun about mystical psychedelic states, is like what's real, what's not. That's also the nice thing about cool concerts with electronic music and strobe lights, is like you're sort of in this liminal space where you're not really yourself. You're just kind of pure id or ego or libidinal
Mhm.
energy. It's like you're not well, it makes me think again of like Barack Obama, and it's like y- when you become a public facing official with a title, you have to be so fierce about cutting off limbs. And it's sort of sad, right? I mean, talk about like selling out. It's like you have to cut yourself off from, dare I say, losers, right? Like not saying any of his
Yeah.
church affiliations were losers. But yeah, you sort of get subjected to the hell of objective evaluation, which I think is actually just a path to go through, right? I mean, so much of my writing in my 20s was about success. And even somewhat recently, Substack has a top 100 in literature, right? And I could theoretically spend the next 5 years of my career life just like, oh my God, I need to like write more books, better books, get more book sales, go on more book tours. I need to win. I need to win. I need to climb that ladder. And I need to be amongst the best. And then I exhale, and it's like, you know what? I'm just going to keep having faith. And I'm going to keep, because nothing's in my way. I don't need that because I've got everything I need. I can reach the individuals who I think
Mhm.
are my people. I have, there's nothing that a big like a big five publishing house can give me, right? And they're all mostly bored, right? They all mostly want to do as little work as they can. They want an author to come to them with a platform of 10,000 followers, and they want someone who can guarantee 10,000 book sales on the first day, and then they'll be interested in signing you. But they don't want to do shit. They're going to
Yeah.
put out just milk toast marketing for you. And it's like, you need to take your career in your own hands. And,
Yeah.
you know, um, I come from a somewhat affluent background, and um, I think that my parents accept that they have a responsibility to me even still. And I can kind of blame my upbringing on my having become the writer that I am. And it's sort of like a forgivable offense, you know, um, in all the time that I haven't spent making money in the last 8 years, I've been able to dedicate more 15-hour days to my work. And um, yeah, I mean, there's also so much around fear of running out of money. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so interesting, and and also anytime I talk to African American men about anything like marketing, sales, and branding, there's a lot of really deep stuff there around like self-worth and like who's gonna need you, who's gonna want you, who's gonna help and support you. But I think that's very human to kind of fear being left behind from the tribe, because to be isolated and left behind from the tribe used to mean death.
Yeah.
And yeah, having to perform for worthiness, um, having to, yeah, explain your value, and then to be devalued by others around you, told you have no skills, told to go get a real job, learn a real skill. No one needs what you do. I think it might have been Dostoevsky who said the only thing you need to do to kill a man's soul and kind of snuff out the fire in him is to tell him that what he's doing is not important.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very, it's interesting to hear your reflections. on that, and just your background and how you've used it to the full to just create something really was powerful. And I said that having two kids, and a wife. One of my kids has special needs, and there are some real, like I said, it's part of that. It's part of that process of having an interesting life. You know, my son is named after me. We had the same name. And there was that hope and expectation that we would share um, in an intellectual discourse with each other, like similar to maybe this conversation, and like,
Mm-hmm.
knowing such things are not possible, has been a source
Uh,
of initial hurt, disappointment, but more than all those things, growth, and also an ability to see how joyous and happy he is, and how like that joy is imparted to other people, which is the I don't know, the ostensibly supposed to be the goal of some of the pursuits that I've occurred that I've sought after, maybe disingenuously. You know what I mean?
mm,
There's a disingenuity, is that a word? I don't know.
mm-hmm.
To some of these academic religious pursuits that he has achieved without any concerted effort or the IQ, right, to
Mm.
do these things. So a beautiful, meaningful, powerful like experience in my life. So I'm excited to see if I can like turn the corner. And I have to be sensitive to your time. We're over at time, but
Sure.
if I can, with the obligations of family, um, with the naivete and kind of rigidity of experience, if I can turn left and get my work out there. So yeah, man. Um,
Well, I was just going to comment on your son. I mean, you get to, they say that for artists, constraints are good
yep.
because it means you can't do everything and you can't have it your way.
Mhm.
And, the album that you can record with him, for example, if we're using the jazz player's metaphor, is not what you thought it would be.
Right.
But what it turns out to be is it'll be better than you could ever have imagined
Yep.
because you're going to get to make and forge a new language in which to love this boy who will become this man.
Right.
And that will be beyond your imagination. There's also this quote I can send you from this book. Says that we are condemned to live out what we cannot imagine.
Wow. Yeah.
And so it's common talk about being in uncertainty of just not knowing what's going to happen next. And I think the reason I stay away from the um, full-time job people say is all of their virtues is all about making things repeatable and like
Hmm.
making it so there are no aberrations. They're kind of trying to prevent surprises, whereas I sort of start with normalcy and then start making forays into surprise. And it's
Yeah.
like for me, making like surprising myself is the kind of core virtue, right? I mean, sending out to my email lists, saying I got molested by my babysitter when I was a kid. Like,
Hmm.
whoops, there it is, boom. And it's like I still think it's kind of funny. Like, just like I told Claude, it's like I think it's kind of funny that in the middle of something artistic and creative and specific, all of a sudden I just like drop that in there in a parenthetical and then kind of keep riffing on other shit as if it didn't happen. Like, I think that's that's funny because it's going to be like it's like kind of like getting hit in the head with a brick as you're like going and doing something, but it doesn't hurt you because the pain isn't toward you, though who knows? Maybe everyone will have their own reaction of empathy to that.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
think for me, it's like there definitely does seem to be a connection between surprise and humor.
mm,
And my experience of again, I didn't see the file, but my experience of it would be my imagined experience of reading the text would be, how can that be that it's not how can that be,
mm,
but if it's not a central node in the other aspects of that piece that you wrote, how can that be? And that's a very
hmm hmm
magnetizing, energetic thought, because it
hmm
could be a central node, or it could be one of those nodes that are way out there. It could have started as a central node, which is, I think, is a fascinating thing. Like if you think about like a time series data set, but what if you look at a network, and how that network changes over time? Like, it may have been a central node, and it may have moved out to the
hmm
periphery, but that network slash time series analysis of that happening and how it connects to everything else is a powerful story, a very complicated one. You know, um, that again, like Jeff running out ahead, I mean, trying to catch that guy, I mean, that's cool. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
I'm in, what I mean? That's why when you give
I love that.
me, when you give me these quotes and movies to watch and stuff, I put them at the top of the list, man. So,
Well, you're such a good student. I mean, I couldn't wish for any better student than it's like when I suggest a movie, you go and watch it, and then you have thoughts. It's like, oh my God, they wanted to do the homework. That's incredible. That's
yeah, yeah,
amazing. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, this is way better than going into academia, where you've got 80% of the kids who are just there trying to do as little as they can to get a passing grade.
yeah.
And you
Yeah,
might find one or two or three students who really want to follow you through your ideas. I mean, that's the same with jazz, right? Chet Baker, the trumpeter and vocalist, had this quote. He said, most people are only interested in how loud you can play, how fast you can play, all that stuff. But there's very, very, very few who actually can really listen and really follow a horn player through his changes if those changes are completely modern, right? So it's almost like someone who would listen to this conversation. And I'm definitely down to post this as an audio, and then we can decide, or you can decide what to put as the text of it as a Substack post. Um, and it's like it takes a very modern listener to be able to follow what we're saying and to stay engaged. But if they can, I mean, that's a bond for life. That's like, oh my God, you found someone else like you who can follow it. And then they've got their own history. They've got their own past. And that's what makes, being a podcaster so thrilling, right? And it's like, it was a big deal to me that you became a paid subscriber. You're actually only my second paid subscriber. But if somehow me following my bliss and how I put that out can pay me enough money to move out of my dad's house and live on my own and live where I want to live, a simple life. I don't need many nice things. I'm still down to have roommates if they'll have me. Um, yeah, life could be beautiful and I'd be living the dream, but it certainly did take, yeah, going through, yeah, writers under 30 and writers over 40 are very different. I think your 30s are when you either do the work or you don't. And there's all sorts of practical reasons to not do art in your 30s because you've got spouse and kids and rent and health stuff all the time that are always there in the background. And for better and for worse, I've kept my life mostly empty, and I there's a sadness and loneliness that comes with that. Um, but in the absence of a life partner, it gives me the time to devote a romantic is the word I'll use, kind of affection, and genuine sincerity to people like you, for example. It
Mhm.
can it's a special, it's not erotic per se, but there's also like a warlike, we're sort of like citizens together, and that if we needed to fucking get in the boat and row for Sparta, we would fucking put on our helmets and go, and it
Yeah,
would be the
yeah,
best fucking day ever.
yeah,
Um, but
absolutely.
also like I would treat your kid like I would treat my kid, because I sort of realized, and this was a line from James Baldwin, it's like whatever the children of our society become, we will need to pay for it in one way or another. And
Yeah,
so I feel like I'm totally opposed spiritually to, private property, my family compared to other people's families, this house versus the neighbors, like, and I hate to see kids put through the sick competition of high school, of trying to get into good college and then get to college and then get to good grades and then try to find a job. And it's like, well, now those recent grads, no one needs their labor because they fucking suck at almost everything. And they're only getting suckier as time goes on. We see
yeah,
college kids get into college, they can't read more than half a page. They don't know how to make it through an original half of a page. They get tired, they give up, they want to go on their phones. It's like, Jesus Christ, this is going to be a long 4 years, isn't it? And it's
yeah,
like, no one needs their work, but they need to have an at bat. They need, even if the firm doesn't need that labor, because AI can work as a junior associate way better than any junior associate they can hire, those 22 and 23-year olds still need a place where there is real danger, and that they need to live up to something, that they need to be afraid of not being good enough and take meaningful risks that have real stakes. And I think that's a big problem to address now is, their work is not good enough that they should be hired, but they need to do something meaningful so that when they turn 30, and if they make it to 40, um, they're gonna know what to do. They're gonna be able to help.
yeah. That
And
was. Oh yeah, go ahead.
no, 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 go on.
Yeah, and that was one of the things about that piece about like futurism, or that piece you shared with me that I read recently.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that
and the atemporality for the creative artist.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
because I think
wired.
I think
Yeah.
I think to a certain extent, I mean, I think there's a hope for the youth in these different approaches, because we're at a point where I think some of the more ancient ideas and lines of thought, Enlightenment, modernism, postmodernism, meta postmodernism, there's
Post
a
postmodernism.
yeah, there's an inertia that's like setting in, and there's a need to break through. I think not most people, I think there are a fair number of people who are coming to the realization that there needs to be a quantum leap in, I don't know, consciousness, or
Mhm.
ways of seeing things. And to me, there needs to be a mental, spiritual laboratory to run experiments um, in a collaborative space to find the next thing that will provide that space. So, with America being in the place that it's in, manufacturing being what it is,
Mhm.
um, a kind of arguably failing idea economy. Um,
Hmm.
what a financialized economy where the financial instruments are growing
Mhm.
in complexity and risk. Um, the possibility of, it's just my opinion, the possibility of decoding, um, compressing all of these different ideas into a melting pot that allows us to move forward is that aspect of the American experiment is kind of over. I
Hmm.
think it's done. Um, doesn't well, I just think they're not done. I just think there needs to be a new something new. And when I read that piece that you gave me, I felt like, okay, well, maybe this is that space that something new can occur. So
For some reason, it reminded me of the new New York City mayor, Zohran Mamdani. And
yeah,
it's like, okay, just get someone in power in a significant place who has new ideas and has a sense of the possible,
yep,
and just let him just start doing stuff, right? I mean, take the most brilliant people from the internet who are unemployable like me and say, okay, here's a stipend, or here's some
yep,
government housing that's actually pretty decent, and
yep,
just go to work. Just go do your crazy shit. Go have more phone calls like this, right? Like, and then the machine can pick out the best ones, and that we can then feed those over to maybe the more practical people who are more of the engineers, right? Somehow
mhm,
we can distill the good stuff from this conversation, and that can be passed on as work orders to engineers, and we can try building something. And it's like getting the different silos working together, right? Rather than us versus them, right? Artists and bankers and engineers and doctors and futurists and academics, like all of it can work together. It really, really, really can. But that it's that Christ-like perspective that can kind of see through boundaries. All right. I mean, that's what an artist does. That's what a shaman does. It is, I like how Einstein said he treats the janitor the same as he does the president of the university,
yeah,
right? Because everyone's important. Everyone's work is
yeah,
important. Everyone has their role to play. And you can be an artist as a janitor, just like you can be an artist as a university president, right? It's about that slowing down, that sincere care with each little thing, and knowing that relationships and trust and hope and love, all those things that Cornel West has talked about that I've taken a lot from, and all kinds of
yeah,
other preachers. All that
yeah,
stuff matters. All that stuff matters, and it's not doesn't need to be divorced from workday language, right? This is why I like being a man and having the masculine too. Is, a lot of the stuff I do is like very feminine, and I think even my writing self is actually very feminine. I think I'm very much a narcissist. I'm very self-absorbed. I bring it all back to myself, me and myself. So much I in my writing. Um, but I think I've got the work ethic of a man, and that I'm ready to go dig ditches for 12 hours a day and be a cowboy riding on horseback, moving cattle from pasture one to pasture two.
like Rip,
Um,
right? Like Rip in
it's bro,
Yellowstone.
dude.
I love Rip, man.
I
Rip is the
literally watched
man.
set. I literally watched 7 hours of Yellowstone a few nights ago, and I am probably going to do the same today. Is I do 5 6 hours of computer work. I go outside for a walk, and then I get to my media input part of the day. And yeah, I mean, I've never understood the term doom scrolling. I don't understand why people say, don't watch Netflix. It's like, man, like if your job is to have ideas and to think
Yeah,
about human nature, like you got to be watching good stuff, and
yeah,
it's meaningful. I mean, I cry so much. It's absurd how much I cry.
I
Cry
know.
multiple times a day, and then it's always interesting to hear of men who, like, I haven't cried for 28 years. I'm like,
Oh,
wow, you've been dead inside, my guy. We gotta Raphael you up. I gotta fucking break out the tinctures and the needles, motherfucker. We're gonna make you cry today. You're gonna like it.
yeah, yeah. I'm doing a Dune prophecy run right now on
Mm.
HBO Max. That's it's fascinating. Pretty much anytime somebody references prophecy or anything like that, I'm pretty much but anyway, are you still doing baseball? Are you still
I'm still doing baseball. I've got a game this Sunday. Yeah. I found a
Nice.
league in the Bay Area. We play vintage baseball by 1886 rules and equipment.
Whoa.
So a little different than modern ball. The glove's a lot smaller. The bat is significantly heavier, and it's 7 balls to a walk rather than 4. So as a pitcher, I've kind of got some more latitude to play with. And yeah, it's great to get out there with a mix of guys and have a common goal, and we want to win, but we also just enjoy being out there. And it's a reason to stay in shape. And I think about it throughout the week, and I train for it throughout the week. And yeah, and it's a beautiful way to be a different version of myself. Yeah, it's like you're you perform according to your strength, and it's humbling, you know. I wish I was a better hitter. I wish I was a stronger pitcher. And it's nice, you know, because when I'm on my computer, I feel like that's my domain, and that I'm, like you said, like pretty far ahead of the game, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially, you know, with now being almost 40, and you know, I'm kind of going over the whole scope of everything I've done from my 20s to now. You know, I wouldn't want to challenge me in writing.
Hmm.
Like if someone challenged me to a competition, or like someone like comes at me, it's like you're you shouldn't do that, because
Right.
you're gonna end up destroyed and embarrassed in front of all your friends. But with baseball, I I aspire to that, but the gap is so big between what I think I can do and what I actually do, that it's very humbling and um, legitimately frustrating, and that's healthy for me.
Good. Yeah, before I let you go, I'm not sure. I'm never sure when to end these discussions. I'll also say that whatever you want to do with the recording is fine with me. Like whatever you'd like me to
Yep.
adorn it with is fine with me.
Yeah, we can talk about that after. I wonder if Substack yet has the feature where we can co-post one. I don't think we can. Um, but it used to be that you were able to do an article and have a collaborator, or no, like, or that's sometimes a thing you can do. I know they can do it on Instagram. I don't think you can do it here, but maybe, yeah, maybe we can both do it as a post, and we can both do our own version of what it is. But yeah, we can talk about that after, because I also think that, you know, letting the energy ride for a few hours after we're done is kind of going to give us more perspective on like what this was. And yeah,
Yeah,
we can go from there.
yeah. I want to say too, like it's funny we started the call, before we started the call, like I had like these bullet points that I wanted to discuss about what I guess what my genre or medium and how what my interests were and kind of how see my work growing and being shaped like over time. So hopefully at some point down the road we can talk a little bit
Oh
about
yeah. And you can
uh,
message me all those, and I can get back to you. And yeah, we can kind of keep riffing, right? I mean, like I think we've put ourselves in each other's hands. And so I trust you with me, and you can trust me with you. And your success is my success, and vice versa. So,
yeah.
um,
Man, this is great. I really appreciate your time. It's nice to get. It's nice to talk with you. You know, what I mean, I spent a lot of time in my own head, like those moments that we've had and shared online and in person. It's fun to think about, what you're doing, what you're accomplishing, what inroads you're making. So yeah, it's nice to fill in some of the gaps and have even more material to imagine on what you're accomplishing and doing. So I'm glad we could connect and meet up. And yeah, I'll definitely read through those sources that you gave me. And I guess I'm going to go through the work of signing up for the various social media channels and, you know,
Well, yeah, I mean, even starting just on Substack could be good, right? I mean, because there's
Okay.
I could probably point you to like three or five people to read, right? And again, it was interesting, you know, I'm glad I signed up for Blue Sky today because it shows me how, again, careful and methodical one can be about what populates their internal sensor, right? I sometimes think of myself like a camera, you know, this like there's like a piece of glass that's a sensitive photographic plate, and I'm like very aware of like down to the syllable of like how much of someone else's reality I take in.
Mhm.
Because I've now got so many sources that I can kind of read through, and I'm very familiar with, you know, the Twitter feed and the Substack feed and the LinkedIn feed for better and for worse, Instagram feed and stories. And it's like this also goes down to like, you know, when is it time to watch Yellowstone and kind of continue that journey versus continuing to reread my own stuff. Um, yeah, I would say start slow as far as taking stuff in, and you can let me be your Sherpa, and maybe it'll even be better if I don't want to say I decide what to send you and you look to me as your one source, but yeah, I think it'll unfold naturally, and
Yeah.
there's ways to yeah link you into what some call the community. Um, yeah, man.
No, yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. And I think starting with one, maybe starting with Substack, I would really appreciate you being my Sherpa on this. I definitely acknowledge your experience, and also that the subscription, I'm going to be looking for ways to do more to contribute to like what it is that you're doing, because the value, you can't put a dollar amount on what you've done with the time on earth that you've had, as far as I'm
Hmm.
concerned. Yeah, I definitely would benefit from your guidance. I take a student to teacher approach with, you being the teacher on this, and there's a comfort in that, and there's a desire to channel my creative energies into others, and
Hmm.
have it flow through somebody who knows what they're doing in this space. And like I said, that's the difficult parts of getting work out. I think that you've continue to tackle for a long period of time. So yeah, I'll stick with Substack, read through this stuff, and you know, see what we can see. I think once I stop I guess I can stop the recording, and then I think it goes to my Gmail, and then I'll just like I think I can just forward it to you. Um,
Yeah,
and
and yeah, and I can also walk you through how to do it's called a podcast